read everything in the manual. It's very self-explanatory. It'll help you solve your problem. That's all you got to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day. Hi, glad to see you. The customer who just left was having some problems with his radio, but we were able to solve them without having to bring his car in. And that's what I want to talk to you about in today's session of Current Service Information. Now, we're not going to get into anything as complicated as diagnosing unwanted radio noise. Today's solid-state, electronically tuned sound systems are better shielded and produce higher fidelity than ever. What we do want to talk about is a lot simpler. It's the clocks in the various radios you'll find in Dodge, Plymouth, and Chrysler vehicles. Typically, these radios include electronic digital clocks, which keep the time even when the vehicle is turned off. However, these clocks can be disabled, and usually are at the factory, when vehicles are ordered with the computerized message center or navigator. We're finding that many owners who have not ordered the message center or navigator and want the clocks on in their radios are disabling the clocks in the process of programming their favorite radio stations. Minor problem, right? Not really. When these owners bring their vehicles in to have the clock restored, some are being removed and sent out for unneeded repair. So this means that clocks that are in good working condition might be replaced when all that was needed was to restore the clock function. And restoring the clock function is easy. All you need to know is where to look to find out how to do it. Now, that might be the trickiest part of the whole procedure, because you really won't find it in your shop manuals. There are two places for you to check. The first is Technical Service Bulletin 080385, issued in February of 1985, and the second is the Owner's Manual. You'll find the procedures for restoring the clock function in the section on electronically tuned radios, operation and identification. It'll tell you there are 3 different kinds of AM/FM radios, and that the procedures for restoring the clock function are slightly different for each. For this radio, a regular AM/FM stereo, you restore the clock this way. First, verify that the clock is not displaying by depressing the volume knob. Then, press the set button. Then, within 5 seconds, the volume knob. And finally, the AM/FM button 3 times. Oh, by the way, if the time needs to be reset, the Owner's Manual gives you a procedure for that too. Now, let's talk about the procedure for restoring the clock on the AM/FM stereo with cassette tape player and seek and scan. Again, begin by verifying that the clock is not displaying by depressing the volume knob. Then, using 2 fingers, push any one of the 6 memory buttons and the volume knob. Then, push the AM/FM button 3 times. The Owner's Manual for this vehicle will also tell you how to reset the time if necessary. Next, there's the procedure for the Ultimate Sound AM/FM stereo with cassette. It's also simple. Again, begin by verifying that the clock is not displaying by depressing the volume knob. Then, press the set button, and then the volume knob. Finally, push the 70 US button twice, and the clock function will be restored. Again, if you need to set the clock, the Owner's Manual will give you the procedure. Now, you might be asking, what about AM-only radios? Well, what you need to know about them is that the clock in the AM radio cannot be disabled. So if a customer comes in with a vehicle that has an AM-only radio and complains that the clock doesn't work, you know you have a problem with either the radio or the X1 circuit, which provides key-off power to the clock, as well as memory for the programmed radio stations. How can you tell where the problem is? Well, if the problem is in the X1 circuit, you'll lose memory every time the ignition switch is turned off. That simply means you'd have to reset the clock and/or reprogram the stations every time you started the car. See your shop manual for checking the X1 circuit. Now, if the stations stay programmed but the clock doesn't work, It means the radio is receiving power on the X1 circuit and the clock is defective. You'll have to remove the radio and send it out for repair. Oh, and by the way, the Training Division has just released a new publication for all electronic components. It's being used in training classes now and will soon be available for purchase. I hope these procedures save you a little time and trouble. Remember, check the owner's manuals for the procedures. It was good working with you again. See you next time on Chrysler's Current Service Information.